The palace sang, not words, not melody exactly. Something older than both, a sound that lived in the chest rather than the ears, rising from the carved faces in the floor, from the breathing walls, from the sourceless light above. Ajoke had heard singing before. She had heard Omije singing on that moonlit path in Akotogbo, the song that had walked her feet to the river against her will. This was different. This was not a song that wanted something from her. This was a song that had been waiting, patient and ancient and low, for someone to finally come close enough to hear it. She stepped through the entrance. The entrance breathed. In, out. Ajoke stood at the threshold and felt it. The exhale of something vast, pressing warm against her face, like a living thing recognizing her arrival. She turned around. Omije was gone. Ajoke was alone. For the first time since that moonlit path in Akotogbo, completely, utterly alone. She faced the entrance. She thought of Mama. Then she stepped through, and the palace received her. The inside of the palace was not darkness. It was light, cold, sourceless, blue, white, and ancient, filling the impossible space the way the truth fills a room, completely, without asking permission, illuminating everything whether you want it illuminated or not. And the space. The elders always stop here and shake their heads slowly. The space was vast beyond the meaning of the word. The ceiling? Gone. Lost somewhere in a darkness so far above it might not have existed. The walls breathing at the edges of vision, and the floor. Ajoke looked down, and her breath left her body. Faces. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Carved into the dark stone floor with an intricacy so precise, so intimate, that they did not look like carvings at all. They looked like people. Sleeping. Preserved. Each one different. Young, old, round-faced, sharp-featured, braided, wrapped, bare, but all of them sharing one thing, one expression. Ajoke knew that expression. She had worn it herself, on that moonlit path, following a woman she could not stop herself from following. That particular kind of gone. These were the girls. Every firstborn daughter Akotogbo had ever lost. Every red cloth on every rock by the river. Every mother who had screamed until she had no voice left. All of them. Here. Remembered. Ajoke's chest cracked open with something she could not name. Not grief exactly. Not anger. Something older than both. Something that felt like recognition. And then the light at the far end of the palace began to move. It gathered itself slowly. The sourceless glow pulling inward like a tide retreating, concentrating, intensifying, drawing toward a single point with the quiet inevitability of something that has been building toward this moment for a very long time. Ajoke did not run. She stood on the floor of faces and she watched. And from that gathering light, he came. The elders use different words every time they tell this part. Some say he was terrifying. Some say he was beautiful. The wisest ones say he was both, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. He was tall, not aggressively, not the tall of something that wants you to feel small, the tall of something that simply grew for too long and forgot to stop. His skin was the color of the river in that precise hour before dawn. Not black, not blue, but the living, breathing shade that exists only in between, luminous from within as though the light recognized him and wanted to stay close to him. The water of the realm moved with him, not around him, with him, like it was glad to be near him, like it had been waiting for him to walk through it. His face was the face of someone who had been patient for so long that patience had stopped being a choice and become simply what he was. Ancient, ageless. The features of something that remembered things no living person remembered. But his eyes were warm, not cold like the palace, not bottomless like Omije's. Warm, the specific warmth of someone who has not stopped hoping, even when hoping made no sense. Even when hoping was the only foolish thing left to do. He stopped, a respectful distance. He did not come closer. He looked at Ajoke the way you look at something you have been afraid to want for so long that seeing it finally in front of you feels more like grief than joy. The silence between them was enormous. Ajoke broke it. Those faces, her voice steady, steadier than she felt. In the floor, those are the girls. He said nothing, but something moved across his face. Slow, heavy. The specific movement of guilt that has had centuries to settle into the bone. They ran. She said it like she already knew, because some part of her did. They saw this place and they ran, and they couldn't find the way back. Yes. One word, carrying the weight of every carved face beneath her feet. Ajoke looked at him. You didn't want that. Not a question. No. Another single word. But this one broke something in the air between them. Something that had been held tight for a very long time. I never wanted any of them, he said, his voice quiet. Careful. The voice of someone who has rehearsed this conversation in an empty palace for centuries and is now terrified of saying it wrong. I told my mother. From the beginning, I told her. This one. Only ever this one. Me. You. The word fell between them, like something finally set down after being carried too far. Ajoke looked at him for a long moment, at his patient, ancient face, at his warm, impossible eyes, at the loneliness that had become so much a part of him, he probably couldn't feel it anymore. The way you stop feeling the weight of something you've carried long enough. How long? She said quietly. Since before you were born. How long have you been alone? The pause that followed was not empty. It was full of every year. Longer, he said, than Akotogbo has had a name. Ajoke looked down at the faces in the floor, then back up at him, and she felt something she had not expected to feel. Not fear, not anger, something far more dangerous than either. She felt sorry for him. In Akotogbo, it was the third night. Mama Ajoke sat at the riverbank with a lamp that was almost dead. She had not eaten. She had not slept. She had not moved from that spot since the morning they found the red cloth on the rock. The elders had told her to come inside. She had looked at them in a way that made them stop talking. The lamp flickered. The river was still. And then something moved beneath the water. Slow, deliberate, rising. Mama Ajoke leaned forward, and in the dying light of her lamp, pressed against the underside of the dark water surface, was a hand, fingers spread, reaching up.